Hi everyone, welcome back to Online Biz. I am Ruth.
And I'm Eric.
And today we are going to talk about the best platforms to build your micro SaaS on for 2021 and 2022.
So basically, Micro SaaS is a form of a SaaS product that is built on top of another platform or an ecosystem. Sip of coffee every time the door slams. That allows you basically to utilize the bigger platform or bigger ecosystem to drive traffic and users into your smaller SaaS product. Many times you're just going to utilize the APIs or the functions of the bigger platform and just make it a little bit better. And sometimes that's more than enough to generate businesses that generates over $1 million a year easily. And I'll give you some examples. Shopify might be a good one. You can look at other e-commerce platforms such as WooCommerce, maybe Wix, and a bunch of others. And we're going to talk a little bit about it later. I think one thing that is important to mention that it makes marketing and acquisition a little bit easier because most of the time you don't have to really charge the customer. The ecosystem is going to do it for you and they're just going to pass this revenue to you, maybe with a small commission percentage or revenue share model.
Yeah, and I think the good thing about micro SaaS, it does have some disadvantages, but the good thing is that it is usually easier to build. It's usually a smaller product, which some people think is like, I don't know, some sort of a disadvantage because it's a smaller product. It's not as shiny and exciting as the next Facebook or the next Shopify, but it is realistically easier, especially for someone who's just starting out, to actually make it successful than it is to try to build something from scratch. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about our philosophy as far as micro SaaS kind of changed in the last 2 years, let's say. And I think we can talk a little bit about this and what we do believe is the right way to do it now. But I
think we should actually at a point, maybe at the end, to talk a little bit about the disadvantages of micro SaaS because I don't think we brought it up yet, but it's something that is probably important to discuss, but definitely it's the best way, in our opinions at least, to get started with.
We also have a video about micro SaaS that we filmed a year ago, I think, but it's still really good. It gives all the information of what it is, what the disadvantages are, what the advantages are, and how to get started with it. We're going to link it up here so you can check it out if you are interested. But the goal of this specific video is to talk about the best places that we think are growing ecosystems to start building your micro SaaS in the next year or two. Because there are so many niches and so many places you can go for, and we want to give you some of our best tips and how we actually validate an ecosystem and a platform before we start building on it. So I wrote down 4 points, but we might actually figure out some more as we talk, which usually happens. So we can talk about some of the best key things to look at when you're figuring out if a platform is good for your micro SaaS. So what is the first thing you would look at?
So I don't know if there's a first and last. It's just a bunch of points you should have in mind, maybe a table. And then, you can give under each point, you can give it a score and then decide for the platform you want to go for. I think one thing that is probably the most obvious one is size in terms of users, active users, and how many paying users, and maybe how much each customer is paying. Because usually for micro SaaS, the customer is not going to be willing to pay your micro SaaS more than is already paying the main ecosystem or the main app that you are built under. So for example, if we take Shopify as the most obvious example, if a merchant is paying Shopify, let's say $300 a month, you are not likely to be able to charge him more. Again, there are exceptions, but there is a good chance you're going to charge probably less than that because you're just providing a fraction of the capability. You're just making it better, and the customer usually isn't dependent on you. So that's one thing.
I think you actually mentioned two things, because first of all is the size of the ecosystem, which is really important. How many customers do they have? If it's, 100,000, then you have a very small, limited audience.
Yeah.
By the way, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It's just something to consider, as opposed to if you have millions. And then the second thing would be the willingness to pay, like the profile of the audience of this market. Because, for example, I think Shopify is a really good example. Shopify hosts businesses, and it has a bunch of different, it has some dropshippers that just got started, and it has big brands. Obviously, the price sensitivity is different, but the idea is because these are businesses that hopefully are making money off the platform, they will be more willing to pay you than, let's say, an Android user. If you're building an app for the Google Play Store, it has to be a really good app for them to be willing to pay. They want everything for free, which makes sense.
Yeah. Definitely B2B platforms are also a consideration you should have in mind. I think even if you look at sorry about that. Even if you look at the user base of a platform, another thing you should consider is maybe how good of a fit your product is for the entire ecosystem. So the smaller the niche is, doesn't really mean that you can generate less revenue. It just means that your product needs to fit more of that, pool of customers. So for example, as Ruth mentioned, Android users, there's a huge pool of users, but the option for you to get revenue out of so many of them is probably limited. But if you look at a solution that might be a good fit to, let's say you're integrating to a help desk. Let's say Crisp, for example. It's a help desk. They have about 200,000 users, which is not a lot compared to either Shopify or compared to the Android app market. But still, if you can build an add-on that is a great fit for, let's say, 80% of them, then you can get 160,000 paying users. So you just need to, again, just have this in your mind and try to build product that fits as biggest percentage as possible out of this customer pool. Yeah. I think another point that you definitely need to consider is competition, and this is where there is a big
misconception.
Not only misconception. This is like a very thin balance. I wouldn't say art, but there is a balance there, because there are good things to competition, bad things to competition. Do you want to elaborate more a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I think the misconception that I mentioned was that a lot of the times people think, okay, I need to find something that no one has done before me, so there's no competition. And that's, it could work, but first of all, it's kind of difficult to find because the world is big, the internet is big, most of the ideas have already been thought of. And second, having competition is not necessarily a bad thing. When you have competition, it signals that there is an audience for this product. And the question you should ask yourself is not, do I have a competition or not? Is how large is the competition? How much space is there in this area for a new product? And do I have something that is unique, that kind of improves on the competition? If the answer to both of these is no, then maybe this is not the product for you to build.
Yeah.
But again, I think a really good example would be taking it back to Shopify, because that's the word we know. Building a reviews app. Hold on, the door is about to be slammed again.
Sip of coffee.
If this was vodka, we would have been drunk a long time ago.
Already, yeah.
So in Shopify, when people think of building a reviews app, my advice would usually be don't do it, not because it's not a good idea, but because the market is so saturated. Unless you have something completely groundbreaking that's going to change the game, I don't see how you could steal a lot of the competition's users. On the other hand, when we built Reconvert for the first time, we had like one or two apps that did something similar, but we looked at it and we were like, okay, yeah, we can definitely do it better. We have some ideas on how to improve it and take it to the next level. So in this case, having competition was a good thing. It showed us that other people are thinking of this. There is a need for it. People want it, but we could do it better.
Yeah, and Wow, I wanted to say something, but I kind of forgot it.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, in terms of competition, you need to understand no matter how big the market is, eventually things change outside of the platform. So every time, a big company have this huge ecosystem, two things might happen that really might shuffle the cards every once in a while. So it can be either new technologies that is external to the platform. So let's say, I'll give you the example of e-commerce. Right now, the entire world of AR and VR is really expanding, and the technology is getting better. And over time, we'll probably see more and more apps and features that are going to make your store more compatible to these new world that is coming out. Even Shopify just announced, not Shopify, Facebook, Zip of Coffee announced that they're going to launch a new marketing platform for Oculus, the new VR, the VR, the VR product. And I can just guess that once it's out, some apps are going to come up that allows you to, take your Shopify products and, advertise them in this VR world. So that's just one example for something external. If you look at something internal, you can look at new APIs that Shopify is going to expose to the public, so that they don't have to build them themselves. If you just look at an example from the last year, you can look at subscription and post-purchase upsells, things that came out just recently. And these things are continuously evolving, and you can always find the right opportunity to jump into the right market. So you should never look at at any market and say, all right, that's it, it's done, there's no way for me to get in. Because the bigger it is, and if you are able to find the crack and get in, the success is going to be much faster and much bigger for you. So that's something to consider. The other hand, if you can find these platforms that are now emerging and are still very young in terms of users compared to apps or add-ons to that platform, there is a better chance for you to come up with something that is going to be bigger in the long run, and you can position yourself in a place of authority and capture the market while it's young.
I would summarize everything you just said as the maturity of the marketplace. Mm-hmm. Basically, there are two different ends of the spectrum, and whatever end you find yourself in, there is a different opportunity. For example, if you find a marketplace that is maybe a little fresher, a little younger, then maybe there are not a lot of big customers there yet, and maybe they don't have all the APIs you need. We have this right now with some platforms we're trying to get into, where some of the APIs that we have on Shopify that are very easy to use are missing on this platform. That doesn't mean we give up on it. We try, wait for it to be ready. And basically, the idea is that even if the marketplace doesn't feel as mature, maybe your growth would be slower, but when the marketplace grows, you will be one of the first people in, and it will give you a huge edge on the rest of the competition. So this is something to consider. It really depends on where you are, your status. If this is your first product and you want to make money relatively fast, I wouldn't go on the newest platforms. I would go on something that's in the middle that already has some potential market.
I think there's one other point that we didn't mention here that is super important whenever you're trying to pick your micro SaaS ecosystem to get into. It's better to aim for something you personally know. So it's very easy to see any emerging platform and say, oh, I want to be there, let's build something for there. And then you try making assumptions about needs of the end user. And many times it's just not going to be true, especially if you don't have this business knowledge and experience. So I think it's better to get started with markets that you have some experience and some knowledge of. So I'll give you an example. If you're a developer, there is a good chance you better, maybe build an add-on for Jira, which is, again, a very advanced tool for project management, specifically for developers, or you can build for GitHub. Or if you are into e-commerce, then obviously Shopify would be a good example. If you're, you're using Slack a lot, you can use an add-on for Slack. And if you're a designer, you can build something for Figma. So this is just a bunch of examples. I'm probably going to mention some of these platforms later, and you can figure out for yourself which one is the best for you. But that's something definitely you're going to have better chance to succeed if you're building something that you love and you need for your Zip of Coffee. All right, so I think now that we came up with pretty much all the things we think about before we decide whether or not to get into a new ecosystem of micro SaaS products, let's talk about a few of the ones that we look forward to in 2021 and 2022.
I just want to say before we jump into the actual platforms, one note about how we see micro SaaS now, which has changed, as I said in the beginning. When you build a micro SaaS, I don't think about, okay, I want to build an app for Shopify or I want to build an add-on for WooCommerce. Think about the product and the niche, and then think about the platforms that you could build a micro SaaS on. For example, e-commerce. When you build a product, it shouldn't just be a Shopify product. It can be a Shopify, WooCommerce, Wix, Magento, whatever e-commerce platform is out there, your product could fit. So I would look at first the ecosystem, and then look at the actual platforms so that your product is a big fit for anything in this niche.
Yeah, and ideally your product is going to be able to integrate into as many platforms this way, and this way you can look at integration as a marketing effort and not as a technological effort.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely something you should look at, and it's a great mention.
We interrupt this program to make sure that you subscribe, hit the bell notifications, and hit the like button so you never miss another video from us. Now, let's continue with regular programming. So now that we've said that, let's talk about some of these upcoming platforms that we recommend. Do you want to start?
Yeah, I think in my mind at least, I would still say, or sorry if it made some noise, I still think that the number one place to go into, at least in my mind, is Shopify. Shopify is just so big, and the amount of money that is running through this platform is insane. The willingness to pay of merchants is, again, very high. Usually I think that merchants pay different apps in total more than they do pay Shopify, which is great. And again, it's all about e-commerce. So if you can help its businesses, they spend way more easily, and if you help them generate revenue, they will be more than happy to pay you back a fraction of what you generate. More than that, new technologies are always coming out. Also, again, there's a lot of competition. Things are getting a little bit harder, but Shopify also just announced that they took the commission out from 20% stable to first $1 million in revenue every year free, and then 15% instead of the 20% they used to take until now, which is great. So I do think Shopify, and again, it's also a very big platform with over 2 million stores, and people are still migrating to this platform. So I think it's just going to get bigger and bigger in the upcoming years.
And also the ecosystem is just very mature. Like the partners, there are so many communities that you can use to connect with, to co-market with, and just to learn from. And as far as APIs and capabilities of the platforms, we have yet to see something that is as mature as Shopify. So I just think from the little experience we've had so far, building apps not just for Shopify, this is the fastest growth, and the fastest growth of paying customers and not just app installs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next.
I think, I don't know if it's the right order of way to look at things. The one that really catched my eyes recently. I said what?
Caught.
All right.
No, it's okay.
The one that really catched my eyes lately, and there are a bunch of those, but one of them specifically is the Oculus ecosystem. So Oculus is the VR gaming platform by Facebook. It's completely changing everything you see around you, and the technology is still not quite there yet. It's very fun, it's very engaging, but there's still not a massive adoption on it across the world. And I do think that the bigger it will get, the more users we'll see, and the more options we'll see to get paid through this platform. So right now there are a little over 1,000 apps on the Oculus App Store, and I think a sip of coffee. And I think it's only going to get better and better. Right now, the way it looks, it seems like the focus is about the design and mostly about gaming. But this new VR technology can really take it wherever you want. I've seen a bunch of apps that take it to the B2B side of things that allows you kind of manage everything in huge screens and you can really control everything. But the opportunities there are limitless. And right now already people are making huge amounts of money just from building these really not such advanced games. So if you look at it in the upcoming years, I think there's tons of potential there.
Yeah, I think the thing about Oculus is it's not just for this platform, but any kind of new technology kind of changes everything in the economy. So the internet changed everything, and now we have VR, we have AR, we have AI, we have so many new technologies that are growing and growing fast, and we don't know yet where the world is going to take it. But Oculus is just a really good a good example of a product that takes this technology and does it well and in prices that are marketable already, so that you already have some customers you can test it on and you can market to. I think also it kind of depends on, let's prepare the coffee.
Ooh, 1 second.
A lot of people coming in.
A lot of people are coming in. That's nice. Oh, sip of coffee.
Okay.
Starting to run out of coffee.
Yeah, me too. So I just think this is just one example. There might be others that do VR really well, and it's just worth investigating this entire field.
Yeah, I want to add something on top of that, just to let you know that we're serious about it. And even talking, compared to the points we got earlier, coffee. So we actually just bought 2 Oculus devices just to explore it and get more familiar with it. So as we mentioned before, if you do want to be successful, you need to really explore, really, have the experiences yourself to understand what's missing and what can be better. And it's the same idea to whatever platform you're exploring right now. It's the same idea. So make sure you do that, so you can be familiar enough with the platform and really know what's missing and not just assume. All right, one more day.
Okay.
Sorry for my English, guys. My brain is out today.
Okay, so another really good ecosystem I think is Slack. So Slack, for those of you who don't know, is basically a messaging system for companies, for workplaces, and I think it's just so much more by now. Like, we've started using Slack about a year ago and our lives changed. We've been using Skype before that, and it's a completely different game. And we already use so many integrations with Slack, like Google Calendar integration and Google Sheets integration and all of these things. But there are a lot of paid integrations with Slack. Like, there is a marketplace for Slack, and you can build this, and you can build something that is, again, for B2B, for businesses, that can give them some extra help with being more organized with their team, with communicating with their team. And if your integration is worth money, they will be willing to pay for it.
Yeah, I've seen a few cases, like case studies. One was a guy who built like a poll system for Slack. So you can search it on Google. He wrote a complete article about how he got to $80,000 a month with his app for polls. I also know another guy who built, I think it was like a birthday bot that generated additional revenue for them, and I've heard about one. I've heard this on MicroConf. So there was this guy who built a way to do automatic code review through Slack. So whenever a developer is pushing, sorry, I'm not technical, but whenever the code is ready, it's automatically sending a message on Slack to his manager to review the code, and then he can either accept it or give some feedback. And that also been used a lot. And his first customer was Monday.com. Yeah, so that's just something I had in mind.
Yeah, and I think Slack is just going to, now with the pandemic and with work becoming more and more online and from home and remote, then tools like Slack are becoming more and more important for businesses. And this market is just going to grow. And the needs are evolving. The more people work remotely, the more new needs come up. So it's worth it to keep an eye on it and see what the needs are for the market and actually build for them.
Yeah, and if you're using Slack, you can just ask yourself, what would I pay for? Like, it probably happened to you a lot. Like, I'm using Slack and I say, why do I have to go to another platform just to complete this task? Why can't I do it just from Slack? So, and I think about Slack as a little bit different than the other platforms we mentioned so far, because people don't really look at it as an app marketplace where you can make money. They just look at like these small add-ons you can use, but just think about it. If it's valuable enough for you, you would pay for it. Other people would pay for it as well.
It could also be, by the way, it doesn't have to be a native Slack integration. It could be like Zoom, who recently released an integration with Slack. Or I don't know if it's recently or we just integrated it recently, but Zoom have their own paid plans. The integration doesn't cost anyone any money, but they acquire customers that way from Slack. So people who are using Slack might be turned into using Zoom because of the integration. And once they're using Zoom, eventually they'll want to upgrade because they outgrew the free plan. So that's another way to look at it. You don't have to pay for the integration, but you have to pay to use the product.
Yeah, great point.
Okay.
All right, moving on to the next one. This one also is very interesting to me, at least. And this is something that I discovered like a month ago. Very interesting. I can't see myself building anything to this platform just because it's really not my thing. But Figma, guys. Figma, if you don't know Figma, it's like a zip of coffee.
I love that you say a zip of coffee.
A zip.
A zip.
We need to take a zip.
Sip.
Zip.
Zip is zip file.
Okay, so let's take a zip file of coffee.
A zip file of coffee.
So if you don't know Figma, it's like, I want to say like Photoshop, but it's not because it's so much better. It's a design tool built for designers. It's pretty much free. There's everybody in today's world, in every startup uses Figma to design their websites, their apps, and everything else around it. If you don't know it, check it out.
It's a game changer if you do anything with UI and UX.
Yes. It's super simple. It's super intuitive compared to other tools, at least. And they have this tab called Community where you can have different add-ons to the Figma, to your Figma account. So, for example, if you need icons, so they have, you can buy a tool that allows you to add icons and control the design of them, or have them in different formats to fit your work. And this is just an example. There are add-ons for illustrations where you can control the illustration and the way it works. Things for animation, things for logos, things for UI kits. You can really do a lot of things around it. And it seems like something that really have the potential to grow because this is something new. I don't think there was a marketplace before to something that related specifically to design with a SaaS product. So that seems like really something that can grow. By the way, Figma have more than, I don't remember, I don't want to say because I just did some research and dug up the numbers, but over 200,000 users for sure. I'm not sure exactly how much are paying, but that's definitely interesting.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting to look at it not as a micro SaaS necessarily, but to basically, if you are a designer, you could sell your designs.
Yeah.
You could sell elements for design, which is pretty cool. Yeah. It's kind of a micro SaaS with no code. You just sell whatever design assets that you've created.
Yeah, so I think they have like categories. Cheers. Sip of coffee.
Zip of coffee.
So they have different categories for themes, for UI kits and add-ons and apps. So I think it depends on what types of API they got. I don't really know, but you can do a lot of things about it. I think that also the billing there is external, which means you don't pay any commission, but I'm not sure about that because we really didn't dove into it. But I do think it's one of the best upcoming markets for micro SaaS products.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So last one would be the Google Workspace.
Yes. So I don't know if anybody noticed that, but if you go to Gmail, if you go to Google Sheets, there is an app market called the Google Workplace, where you can add different add-ons to all sorts of areas in your Google suite of tools. I'll give you an example. You can add a Slack integration between your between your Gmail and Slack. Then whenever you get an email, you can just share this email directly to Slack with the relevant channel you want. So that's just an example. And the options, the opportunities there are limitless, in my mind at least, because Gmail is so big right now. Like, I don't know a single person that doesn't have a Gmail account.
Yeah.
And if you look at if you look at the business side of things, I think, I don't know how much percentage of businesses are now running on G Suite, but it's just everybody uses that. So if you can think of a tool that is going to somehow connect to Google, and you can, so again, I think this would be a great example again for a product that is not necessarily native to Google, but it can be a great marketing channel for you if you can build some sort of integration to Google, so that you can acquire and get customers familiar with your product through Google. That would be definitely great.
Yeah, I think basically, like you said before, treat each marketplace as a marketing integration. So if you find even the smallest way to integrate with the marketplace and add some sort of value to users who use it, then you can just get them into your app and your platform to get the full extent of the features that you offer. It doesn't have to be a full-on integration, a native integration like we have with Shopify with Reconvert. It can be something small that just gives you the marketing benefit. And that's really, I think, the main takeaway. Try to find these platforms that are good for you, that you are familiar with enough, and you can basically just get users from there by giving them some value. It could be minimal. It doesn't have to be like the end all be all.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this is basically, obviously these are not all the platforms in the world. These are not all the opportunities that you have. These are just some things we have recently noticed that we think could be a really good opportunity. And some tools to help you start investigating on your own to get you going with finding these platforms.
Yeah. I also think we can just list down a bunch of honorable mentions that weren't on the list but are still great opportunities, to integrate into. If we look just at e-commerce, you can have a look at Wix, you can have a look at PrestaShop, you can have a look at WooCommerce, you can have a look at Cafe24, which is, by the way, a Korean e-commerce platform that is now trying to expand, to the West as well. If you're looking at website building, again, Wix, you can look at Webflow, it's Squarespace, plenty of other places where you can look at and just build for. If you look at project management systems, you can have a look at Jira, you can have a look at ClickUp. They don't have an up marketplace yet, but still building an integration could be highly effective. You can look at Trello, you can look at so many other places. And again, this is just to keep things simple. If you look at messaging, again, there is Slack. If you look at support, you can look at different help desks such as Zendesk, such as Crisp. If you look at e-commerce, then Gorgias and Freshdesk, and all of these guys. Plenty of opportunities. It's really endless. You just need to understand these upcoming markets, find these ecosystems that kind of want to work with developers and want to open the APIs for external developers, and just try to come up with the one thing that can really integrate into as many of those. Then it's just going to be so much easier for you to market your product.
Exactly. So I think we talked about everything we wanted to talk about. Yeah. Again, I think the whole idea of finding the new up and coming places to market your product and to build your product for is really interesting. So if you guys have any platform that you are currently investigating or interested in or working on, let us know in the comments below. We would love to know it. We would love to get to know some new platforms. And also let us know if there's something you're already working on. If you have any questions about the things we talked about, we would love to answer it. I think that's it.
Wait, one more minute. First of all, if you liked the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit the notification button so you know whenever we release new videos. Also, if you want to jump on a coaching call with us, we're going to have our Clarity link below. You can schedule a call with us over there. So we're trying to help micro SaaS businesses who are trying to get either a product market fit, or also help with either operational or marketing stuff. So feel free to reach out. Either way, thank you so much for watching, guys. We really had a lot of fun, and we'll see you probably on the next sip of coffee.
On the next sip of coffee.
Next sip of coffee.
Cheers.
Cheers. Ciao.